Hi Diamond Girls! Today's video is all about when your wounded inner girl falls for what she believes is a strong masculine energy man, but he's actually a man full of ego. Now we all have wounded inner girl on board with us. We all have a part of us that's a much younger version of ourselves that perhaps needed to behave as an adult when she was a child. She was in a world of adults that couldn't provide, protect, and maintain for her, or she just really had experienced traumas as a young child, and she kind of stayed at this particular age inside of you. So a real quick recap of Wounded Inner Girl is that you have always had her, even if you've had the best childhood. We all have a version of our wounded inner girl on board. So first, let's embrace that she exists. Secondly, there's a good chance she's been choosing the men in your life. Sometimes choosing men that are these strong masculine partners. They might make love to you incredibly. They might make you feel a certain way that you just can't describe. They might bring an energy or an excitement or an intensity to you that you otherwise just haven't felt. A lot of times women who are falling for these men full of ego and some masculine energy or are in wounded child, they say to me, Adrienne, I'm very picky. I'm very picky about the type of man that I'm with. And the problem with that is that you're not open to all types of men because Wounded Inner Girl has chosen a very specific type of man to be drawn to for very particular reasons. I'm going to cover that in this video. I'm going to tell you exactly what men full of ego, how they behave, and what you will experience with them, and how this is not meant to be mistaken for masculine energy. Now, for those of you who have some of my courses, I have a lot of courses online at everheartcoaching.com, whether you're in a get him back situation or you are learning my FEM tools, that's Feminine Energy Mindset Method, that comes with the VIP library. In the VIP library, I have a couple of different documents about healing wounded inner girl or wounded inner child. And I also discuss it in my ebook, 500 Ways to Talk to a Man. So if you want to go deeper, check those out. But for now, let's focus on these ways a man can be driven by his ego rather than having that caring, warm, masculine energy that you crave. So the first one, it might seem kind of obvious, but it is his need for control. A man that's functioning from his ego wants to have the final say in decisions. He often disregards other people's opinions, or if you have a preference or even a boundary, he may put up a lot of resistance towards that. Now, here's the thing. Boundaries can ruffle most people's feathers. We can kind of sense that someone's telling us that we need to do something different or they want something done in a different way. So it's kind of normal to have a little bit of ruffling in terms of boundaries or even preferences. But this man who's running on his ego is totally coming from a place of control, and he will belittle you. He will talk down to you. He will say negative comments to you about your opinion or whatever it may have, because he is in fear of losing control. Now, a good example of this is when you are with a man who's checking out other women right in front of you. I have a really popular video on that about when he looks at other women. Now, you always have the right to walk away in that situation, and I really recommend that you do watch that video, but here's a good example of that control. He wants to keep doing things the way he's always done them, even if it means a lack of disrespect for the woman he's with. And when she says to him, I feel really disrespected when I see you looking at other women, and the man says, well, you're just jealous. Well, you're just insecure. And so he's going to play down your emotions in order to keep his control in that situation. So let's move on to the next one, which is he has an inability to apologize. So masculine energy men will admit they are wrong. They will admit when they messed up. They will tell you, yeah, I was looking at that girl and they were loud and they caught my eye and look at that outfit she's wearing. They will apologize. But a man who's stuck in his ego will really resist admitting any type of mistake or apology because it will make them seem weak, and worse, it will make them feel weak. So their apologies will sound something like this. Well, I'm sorry that you felt that way. Well, I'm sorry when I said this that you felt this particular way. So they're not really apologizing. Not that someone needs to always apologize for how you're feeling, but if someone really did something where they misbehaved or they behaved in a way that was not in alignment with the relationship values, you expect an apology. You would hope for an apology. Even if you have to remind a man, the way you talked to me earlier today, my feelings were really hurt. Are you going to apologize? And even then, a masculine energy man may say, well, yeah, I will apologize for that. But a man stuck in his ego, he will not apologize. He will ignore you. He'll talk down to you about that. So everyone listening in, this is a live video. We are experiencing a storm today with a hurricane. I hope I don't lose power. But give this video a thumbs up if it's helping you so far to just tell the difference between ego and masculine energy, because wounded inner child is a child and she cannot tell the difference. They just both feel like power to her and sometimes like respect, or even like someone else is bigger, stronger, and in charge. And we end up falling for a man who may even have a good amount of masculine energy, but he mostly shows up in that place of ego. He could have all of these, he could have some of them, or he might have a couple where you can really identify this is ego, not masculine energy. And stick around to the end because I'm going to give you some tips about what to do if your guy is stuck in ego, and how to get him identifying with that empathetic side and really seeing if he's got what it takes to stay in a relationship with you. So this next one is an overemphasis on success. That could be success at the gym. He's got to have the perfect body, or his self-worth is only defined by how successful he is in his business or his company, rather than successful at being a partner, successful at being a good dad or a husband, or being involved in the community or church. He's only successful and having value in what he's interested in, his hobbies. So I don't care if it's listening to music, playing in a band, fishing, or tinkering out in the garage. Those are all wonderful hobbies. But when they become that main source of a man's identity and his success is on these things other than the family, that's where you're going to have a problem with ego. Now, I will tell you, a lot of masculine energy men, the relationship comes kind of second to the career, because if their hierarchy of needs is that we all need to be fed, protected before we can be a happy family. So I want you to begin to see the difference between that all or nothing thinking. For example, you may have a workaholic. He means well. He wants to provide for his family, but he's not actually spending time with the family. You have to have that balance, or he's functioning from a place of ego. Ultimately, ego is fear of not being seen as successful, good. Someone's going to judge me. My first husband was quite the workaholic. He was a wonderful provider, but at the end of the day, I hardly got to spend time with him. And a lot of his stuff was about social anxieties of how his parents or coworkers may judge him if he was not overachieving. But that's still a type of ego. And this leads into the next one, which is fear of vulnerability and criticism of others. So a man stuck in his ego, he's going to avoid being open emotionally. He's going to avoid showing any sign of emotion because that's weakness. Now, he might show anger. He might get up and get big and get loud because that's establishing dominance. But in terms of really breaking down, having a good cry with you, he's going to have a hard time showing that emotional openness because he's hiding behind these fearful places that his ego is creating an illusion in which he's safe, he's in control, he's in power. They also have this, criticism of others. They will be very dismissive and belittle others in order to remain superior and feel, again, this sense of control. They also cannot accept criticism from other people. This will feel like, they're not good enough. They're not worthy. What do you know? I'm the king over here. How dare anybody criticize me? I am infallible. I can make no mistakes. So that ego takes over instead of this healthy place of occasionally, criticism is going to be spot on, or there's going to be a thread of truth. I always say, if someone is criticizing you, go ahead and hear them out, even if you're just like, shut up, you're so wrong, because there is this thread of there's probably some truth in something you're saying. And I'm all about expanding self-awareness, but that requires vulnerability. So these men stuck in this giant ego, this is not masculinity by staying big, tough, and strong, and also belittling others, talking down to others. You can tell really quickly if a guy has this ego problem with how he treats people at a restaurant. The waiter or wait staff or waitress, how they treat them and respond to them, or, little things like that, how they treat others or talk about others. Now, you can always have your own opinion, like, oh, that dumb guy cut me off in traffic or whatever. But we're looking for overall majority that this is how this person behaves. So again, some men will have some of these characteristics. You may even have some of these characteristics, but we're looking for, it's an overall appearance of the ego instead of masculine energy. And again, your inner girl kind of falls for this, and she gets into this because the whole reason inner girl is wounded is that those parental sources, whether it was masculine or feminine, they were either not there, or they were inconsistent, or they were in a way that she could not depend on or identify with, that gave her that sense of harmony in a relationship. And so these extremes are what I call 10s and 0s in a relationship. That's why that relationship can feel just like so mind-blowing. You're at a 10 and then you drop down to a 0 and you're feeling terrible. It's because that person is operating from a place of all or nothing. They're giving you all the love in the world. You're feeling amazing with them, but then they go into this place of ego and you feel terrible. And so it's this feast or famine type of feeling. It's all or nothing. It's also known as like living on crumbs. You're so hungry once they come back into your life, you eat up those crumbs and it tastes amazing because you're going without for so long. So let's move down this list. We're also going to look at the man with a big ego instead of masculine energy, competitiveness. This is a big one because competitiveness can really be an opportunity for connection with others. If you've been watching the Olympics, you might have noticed that there has been so much togetherness after they rival or swim against each other, or gymnastics or whatever it may be. There's a coming together that we are all going through this and fighting this together. We're enjoying and enduring this together. But competitiveness, that's like the guy at the ball game that his team loses and he's mad as hell about it. Like there's something in their mind that competitiveness isn't for, community or something where you can collaborate and enjoy it. It's really more of like just stone cold competition. I'm better than you are. My team is better than your team. So I touched on this a little bit earlier, but that dismissiveness or dismissive attitude, that's when you are getting ignored or your feelings are getting undervalued. So they under-evaluate other people's feelings and perspectives. We've all known that guy at a party where if someone gets on the topics of politics, his way is the right way and everything else is stupid and dumb. And it's just dismissive. When I was younger, I had this really cute, like purple hair, little bits of purple hair, and I loved it. And back then it wasn't as easy to dye your hair these cool colors that now you see grandmas wearing and everyone wearing. And I just remember this guy telling me, he was like, as long as you have hair like that, you will never have a successful career. And he was maybe trying to help me, maybe trying to tell me like, you're not going to be taken seriously in the workforce. But recently I took my mom to get an x-ray in the ER. And the gentleman that was doing the x-rays had amazing fingernails, fabulous hair, makeup on. And so you just see that dismissive way of seeing the world where your way is the right way is always a part of that ego, instead of like, it's flexible and we can all be unique. And maybe at that day and time, they're not accepting it, but you'll find your right path, purple hair and all. So a big one is defensive behavior. Now, a lot of you diamond girls suffer with this with your guy because we make a request to our guy. I teach you how to state your feeling statements or state your feelings, your boundaries, or your preference. And the guy just reacts defensively and he criticizes you instead of reflecting on it. So I want to really pause there because that's a big one with something that I talk about in terms of communicating with your guy on a place, on a level where you feel that mutual respect. And you can say to your guy something like, oh, I feel dismissed, or I feel disregarded, or I feel pushed aside, or I feel like my feeling I'm not being seen, I'm not being heard. And that's a really good way to get your guy to get out of the ego and get back into his body and his heart where he can find you and connect with you. Now, just because a man's in his ego doesn't mean he isn't capable of getting out of it. But remember, we're looking for consistent behavior. It's really not your job to train a man and condition a man into being an empathetic, caring individual. So that is way too big of a job for you. And this is where I go back to his problems are not your problems, meaning it's not that he's not going to have problems in life, but his problems might not even appear as problems to him. He might not even notice. He just dismisses your feelings and he gets very defensive when you tell him how you feel. He might not even see it as a problem. And then at some point you walk away. And remember, walking away doesn't have to be like, hey, I'm moving out right now, our relationship's over. Walking away can really be a type of, I really need to be seen. I want to have adult conversation. I want us to hear each other. I can't do that if we're going to be dismissing what each other says. And then you may find that your guy goes, okay, well, I think you're acting really insecure. And you might say something like, that's labeling me negatively. And he goes, well, you're dismissing what I'm saying. And he might try and turn it on you in some really clever way. So I want you to be able to just have this place of I feel, and a boundary. So if he says, well, you acted really stupid the other day, well, you can say that I feel so sad hearing that, or I feel terrible hearing that. And just see how this unfolds once the man gets out of this place of ego and gets into his heart. Well, I feel so terrible if I'm so stupid. Maybe it's just, I'm gonna maybe go to my mom's for tonight. All right. So you begin to have this way of walking away that if I'm so terrible for you and you're so combative with me every time I feel something, then I'm just going to walk away a little bit, whether that's go in my room and journal for a little while, or I'm going to go to my mom's for one night, or I'm going to take a little girls' weekend trip. You find other ways of walking away. And there is a conditioning pattern. There is a type of influence that you will begin to have over him, but you'll be able to see if he can get out of his ego and get into his masculine energy. Now, do not do this in hopes of changing a man, teaching a man how to be empathetic, sympathetic, how to behave like an adult. You're not his therapist. These are your ways of giving the man the absolute best chances to wake up to what he is losing. So again, we're going to stay in a place of I feel. You're going to then have a boundary, which would be something like, leaving the room, which can be a soft leave, a soft exit, such as, okay, I've heard you. I don't think we're going to come to any type of conclusion. I'm going to go to the gym now. That's a soft leave. And you can just simply say, okay. You may feel very disappointed and just walk away and leave it for a while. But that silence and space is so, so important for the man to feel so he can get in alignment with who he wants to be. Is he going to stay in this ego, or is he going to be in his masculine energy? So don't let your inner girl take control and get so heavy into attachment and that fear of losing someone that she can't actually see what's happening around her. So this is the work I encourage you to do, which is get in touch with adult you, know what adult you is feeling, instead of wounded girl just chasing after that attachment because she's wounded. All right, so that's a lot of information to take in. I want to talk a little bit more about, how this can work in your life. I am going to open it up for conversations. Any questions you may have. Shelby says, I feel like I'm living everything you just talked about. I'm exhausted. Thank you for your video. Shelby, I'd love to hear a little bit more about like what you're going through and what you're experiencing in these terms, because it is exhausting as long as we're like trying to fix it, work on it, or solve it. And there is a point where you have to go like, this is the man I've chosen. Like, this is the man I want to be with, and this is how he is. Okay, I love him. I don't want to leave him. How can I live my life? How can I respond or react in ways that are for my highest good without coming down to this level of ego? All right. So there is a really popular movie that came out years ago. Actually, I think it was maybe a sleeper hit, and it eventually became a Broadway show, but it's called Waitress. And the lead, the female character in it, has this really self-centered, egotistical guy that even when she gets a baby and she's talking to her baby, he's right by the baby's head, like saying, don't you love me? Are you going to look at me that way? And at some point, I don't know spoilers, but at some point she's just like, this is not what I want. Like, I want to be with someone who is really secure. And that's a lot of what ego is about, is that they're lacking security. And so instead, they seek power, feelings of power, something like yelling. Yelling and volume is definitely a way to establish dominance and power in a relationship, but they aren't sustainable ways. You can't go around yelling at everybody all the time, can you? No. So they're the short-term, not sustainable ways to establish dominance for these poor guys stuck in their egos. Okay, Alala has a question. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. How do you get out of the cycle of a man wanting to go with the flow and not following through on his words? Okay, so if a man isn't following through on his words, can you give me an example of what those words are? Are they like, yeah, we'll get married? Or is it like, let's hang out on Thursday, and then Thursday never happens? I'm going to come back to you and give me a question about that, all right? Sorry, give me an answer. Leighton says, he is saying he loves me, and he also says he cannot provide. Do I move on? Give me an idea of what you mean by he cannot provide. Cannot provide what? I can't be faithful? I can't pay all your bills? What? Give me some more example about that. Anya says, I know this question isn't fitting for today's topic, but I'm looking for some advice. I'm dating the non-applicable man who literally treats me like a goddess, and he is amazing. Is there more? Yes. Yet, sometimes I'm worried that I'm not attracted to him as I could be. But I also know that I always used to go for the bad guy, so I don't know what to do. We've been in a relationship for 1.5 years. Okay, so if you've been in a relationship for 1.5 years, I got news for you. You're into this guy. There's no way you could be with someone for 1.5 years unless it is super duper long distance and you hardly ever see him without being into him. Sometimes I get women in the comments say, Adrienne, you're telling women to settle. And I'm like, yes, I am telling you to settle, because we all eventually settle. We all eventually choose a partner and settle with that person. There's this thing called FOMO, that fear of missing out. You can live an entire lifetime with the concept of FOMO. There might be a better man. There might be a guy who makes more money. There might be, someone who's going to love you or make love to you better. That is part of settling, is that I am choosing you. I'm going to choose you to walk into the sunset with, because the things that are important to me in my journey to the sunset, and by the sunset, I'm talking about old age and death, it's all coming for us. So in that time in between, I want to be with someone that I enjoy life with. Do you have those core requirements that I will have literally the best life I can have? Love, consistency, warmth, nurturing, support, things like this, okay? All right. So yeah, we all eventually settle. We got to pick someone. Okay, back to Aaliyah. She says, yes, Thursday never happens. For example, he doesn't follow on his daily commitments, but is steady coming towards me. So how can he follow on his daily commitments, but not steadily coming towards you? So I'm going to assume this is about dates, okay? So this is about like, hey, let's go to the movies on Thursday, and then Thursday never happens. When the next time he says that to you, and it doesn't happen, I want you to just call him out on it and say, I really love that you want to make plans with me, and it feels so good to go out and have a date together. Yet the past 2 times I've noticed you said, let's make a plan on Thursday, and nothing happens. And here's how I feel when that happens. And what do you feel? I feel like, are we on the same page anymore? Are we still dating? Or I feel worried that this is a part of our relationship that like isn't important anymore. And I just need some clarity. Help me understand. So now you're opening it up in a place of help me understand. You're not good or bad, or I hate it when you do that. But here's how I feel, and help me understand and see what comes of that. And this might take a couple of rounds. So some of this, you can tell it's like deeper stuff. And that's why I do have my private coaching group. I think it's very affordable. You can post questions just like this. You can stay for a whole month. You can stay for a whole year, 2 months, whatever you want to do. I teach live classes. I have 5 other coaches in there. You can get consistent coaching about these situations. All right, and following up, she said, he is painfully disorganized. So this is, his problem, not your problem. You could even say something like, I've noticed that, maybe you don't have a calendar, or I've noticed that you forgot again. I'm curious, do you have a calendar? Or I'm curious, do we have a shared calendar? So you can kind of make that suggestion without moving towards him. But if you said, here, give me your phone, I'm going to put my calendar on your phone, and from here on out, that would be moving forward. But you can kind of offer these things. And remember, choose your partner wisely. Choose him very wisely. Okay, back to Anya. We're having issues regarding sex. I don't want to have it as much, and he wants more. That's one of the reasons I'm worried. I see now. Well, I think sex is one of the more important things in a relationship. I really do, because you have a healthy sex life. It bonds you two. You feel close together and things like that. So sexually, there's something about his body that's never going to work for you. You got to own up to that. I have told you guys this very vulnerable story. The first guy I was engaged to, he had a type of like bipolar. It was very mild, but just also his penis didn't work for me. Like he said it was so great for every other girl he had ever known. That's wonderful. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't want to touch it. I don't want to go in detail, but there were certain things that just repelled me. And you know what? I had to leave the relationship. Those were my reasons. Those were important to me. Find what's important to you. And remember, you can also take a break. You don't have to just break up with somebody. you can actually like take a little bit of a break, ask for a little breather, a little bit of time, things like that. He broke up with me and then came back a day later to say we should take time to work on ourselves and see what happens. What should I do? I'm actually working on myself, but I don't know where we stand. You have got to get clarity. So clarity sounds like this. Hey, I understand that you have proposed we take time to work on ourselves. So are we still in a committed relationship? He goes, well, yeah, we're still committed. I don't want you with some other guy. Go, okay. Well, for me to be in a committed relationship, that means I have to date someone a couple of times a week, you know? And he goes, well, I can't do that. I got to work on myself. Well, I'm not so sure. I don't know if I can be in a committed relationship with someone I don't see. Also, what was the other thing I was thinking is that when you are working on yourself and you're apart, how long is that going to last? That's up to you. It's not up to him. He might say, let's give it 6 months, and then I'm going to come back and tell you if I love you or not. No, I'm going to give it as long as I'm going to give it till I feel okay, right? Okay, so I can work on myself and I can start dating other people. Adrienne Everheart has already told me that dating new men is the best therapy you can ever have in life, and it is. To get FEM tools for dating, I have a little chart that helps you sort the guys you're dating and how they trigger you and things like that. It's a really good question. Thank you for asking. Okay. Leighton says he's younger and is from a traditional culture. He's still in university and will not move out until he gets married. And we met over 4.5 months ago. So I'm a big fan of before you get exclusive with someone, you give it about 3 months time. Please stop falling into these relationships a month and 2 weeks into dating. Give it 3 months. You can still say, I love you. You can still have sex with this person. That would be a sexually exclusive relationship. But as far as like, I am totally exclusive with just you, I'm closing out all other options after knowing you a month and a half. That's just crazy to me. So everybody learn the slow burn. I teach you in FEM tools for dating and also 500 ways to talk to men. All right. Okay. Oh goodness. You just said the thing to me. She said, by the way, I'm doing no contact. Well, you just answered my question. If you're